Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jen. Thank you so much for stopping by today's video. So I just got an order for 2 purple bumblebee tumblers on my website from Brittany. So we're gonna go ahead and make them for her. This order is for another customer. So these are very popular right now on my website because look at these colors. And we also have the matching bumblebee. So we are going to be using 2 previously sublimated tumblers. These were given to me by my friend Kim. So we're going to be repurposing them and giving them some new life. The first thing we're going to do is sand the tumbler to rough up the surface. And then we are going to do our base coat. So let's get started on that. All right, and then we're going to be cleaning our tumblers off with some rubbing alcohol. I'm gonna give them a nice spray, and my alcohol is almost finishing. And to clean off my tumblers, I'm gonna be using coffee filters because they don't leave any lint. Sometimes the paper towels do leave lint. So we're gonna give that a quick wipe. Now we are going to get our paints and we're going to do a base coat of paint on these. All right, so for the peekaboo sections over here, we have like these dark purples. There's some fine glitter and some chunky glitter mix, right? So I'm going to be using Brandy, which is a color shift. And also this is the mix that I made for the fine parts of the tumbler. And then I'm also going to be using Veronica. And these are all vegan co-glitters if you didn't know. So chunky glitter is really hard to get flat. You have to do a lot of sanding. So what I'm going to do is use these in certain sections, and then the rest of the tumbler will be in the fine glitter. And I'm probably going to add one more type of fine glitter to mix in here, because the only parts that will get the chunky glitter is wherever the peekaboo is going to appear. So wherever I'm going to be doing the empty honeycomb shapes is where I want the glitter. Okay, so the less chunkies that I have here, the better. I only need it in certain sections, and it'll be easier to get them smooth moving forward. And then for my base coat, I'm going to be using Muted Plum by Pop of Color, and I'm going to be using Mod Podge. I'm going to mix them as my base. So let's get the tumbler set up.
All right, so once you're done glittering, you're going to want to pat that chunky glitter down. If you listen to anything I have to say in my whole channel, is to pat your chunky glitters down. Trust me on that one. And then we're going to go ahead and seal this so that the glitter doesn't move. I like to use the Rust-Oleum triple thick spray. Before we resin, I always brush off any excess glitter. So I went ahead and did 2 layers of resin, 30 milliliters each, to get it nice and smooth for our stencil and our spray paint. I'm going to use my heat gun to pop any bubbles, and then unfortunately this is all I had, the Walmart spray paint. It sucks, don't use it, but I did 2 coats and then I went in with my stencil. I'm using Cricut stencil vinyl, and I got this file from Creative Fabrica. If I'm able to link it for you guys, I will. I use different honeycomb patterns on each of the cups, and I just made sure to press it down really, really hard so that it can adhere and we don't have any spray paint spillage. This is the fun part. This is where you get to create your own blends. This is the alcohol ink step to the tumbler, and this is where you can just go wild. I'm using 2 different alcohol inks to create the blend. The base is like this fuchsia pink, and then the second color that I use is a purple, and I just go for it. I just go for it. The most important part is to blend, and wherever you want a heavier like ink color, you want to just let it drip and don't pat it as much, and the areas that you want it to be a little more translucent, then you just pat, and this is where the blend starts to build up when you add that second color. I do darker hues of the purple, and then I do sections where the purple and mix are completely different, and it changes the whole look of the tumbler. So just have fun. I use a makeup sponge, like a makeup blender. I get a big pack from Family Dollar in the makeup section. This is where all your tumblers are gonna take on a different appearance. Like, look at these. I did them at the same time, but they both look completely different. So then for the golds part, I do use a magic eraser because I don't want a heavier blend. And I just add that in a few sections of the cup. And here I am. I removed the stenciling and exposed all the glitter. It looks so beautiful. Oh my gosh, this is where everything is coming together. I do 1 clear coat of resin, and then I do 1 coat with a little bit of glitter to give it like that purple galaxy type of color. And then we go in to our outline, and you want to sand lightly in between to get it nice and smooth. For my offsets, I'm using this beautiful textured metallic vinyl from Cricut, and I'm just finding the offsets to all of the honeycomb shapes that I have made. And this is going to take a little bit because you have to find the outlines and you want to match it up perfectly. But once you get them down, then you are ready for your final coat of resin before adding your drips. So to me, the hardest part is creating the drip. No two drips will ever be the same, so don't beat yourself up. A lot of things go into your drip, how long you let the resin sit, how warm or how cold the temperature in your area is, and how fast your epoxy sets. So what I'm doing here is creating the color for the drip. I'm using the purple mica powder and also the alcohol inks that I used on the tumbler. Again, we want to keep everything cohesive. You can either let your resin sit until it thickens up, or you can use cornstarch. I believe CCDIY has a resin thickener. I'm not sure what it's called, but I'm using cornstarch, and I start by adding a little bit of cornstarch at a time, seeing how thick it makes it, and then I continue adding cornstarch until the consistency is super thick where there is no dripping. The thicker your resin, the better, because you can control it. Once your resin starts to thicken, it is crunch time. So you want to work as fast as possible. You can do a thin drip like I did on the first tumbler at the beginning of the video. This one, I think I put too much mica powder, so the drip was a little bit thicker. But I love that. It's a very honey-like to me. So I did love the way that this drip came out. And I start off at the rim of the cup going all the way around, and then I will go ahead and start adding the actual drip part of the tumbler. I like to give the cup like just one little tap on the table so that the resin can start dripping on its own. And then once I go all the way around the tumbler, I add it to my turner. The reason I add my tumbler to my turner is to prevent the resin from moving more than I like it to, and that way I can control where the resin goes. I can use my heat gun to move the resin if it starts doing its own thing. And I also use a little magic eraser with acetone, and I clean up any little spots where the resin was a little stringy because it's setting. So I do any prep and cleanup before I add it to the tumbler, and there goes the little tap that I mentioned. When it's time to put your tumbler on the turner, just be mindful of your foam. You want to just hold it as tight inside as possible to slide the cup on there. And then I use this as an opportunity to fix the drips if I'm not liking the way that it looks, adding any additional drips to it, popping any air bubbles, and doing a final cleanup. Once my drips have set, I will do a light sand, and I personally I do I do a final coat of epoxy on my tumbler before I start adding the honeybees and finishing up with the tumbler. So now it's time for us to work on the Honeybee tumbler. I'm going to be using the same alcohol ink and mica powders that I did on the tumbler. I'm going to be using that along with some UV resin. And what we want to do is just try to color match the UV resin to either the drip or the tumbler so everything can blend in. All right, so to color the honeybee, I'm going to be using a silicone brush. I'll link it down in the description box below. And where the grooves are in pink, I'm just going to paint it on with the UV resin, and I'm going to cure it. I'm going to try and be as precise as possible, making sure that it doesn't spill over and curing it. I do a total of 4 honeybees per tumbler, but I think 3 is enough. To adhere the honeybees to the tumbler, I just use liquid fusion. It dries within 24 hours. I just fill the little groove of the bee and I add some glue to the wings. I try to look for a space in the tumbler where it could lean on and really have something to attach on since it's not completely flat. And if there's a spot on the tumbler that I'm not crazy about, I'll just choose that spot to put the honeybee on as well. All right, so that is it for today's video. I know it was a long one, but there are a lot of steps to this tumbler. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them in the description box down below. Check that out as well. I'll have a bunch of links to resources and supplies that I've used, and leave me a suggestion for next week's video. I would love to start bulk filming. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.